Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about Bash Bash Revolution. This is my review for the book Bash Bash Revolution by Douglas Lain. I have two warnings before going forward. One, there's going to be spoilers for Bash Bash Revolution in this content. Two, there's going to be pretty deep discussion about evangelical Christianity and religion in this discussion. Now, that second one, that's here because it's discussed in the, it's actually discussed in the book, Bash Bash Revolution. And theology, the study of God, is a major, it's probably the largest theme there is in the entire book. All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so I read the book Bash Bash Revolution by Douglas Lain. First, I want to say it's 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I very much enjoyed reading this book. And it was a page turner. I wanted to know what happened next, and the book dragged me all the way through. Like, I really need to know what happens next. So it's well written. Douglas Lain is a good writer from the craft perspective. Okay, he uses characters well. He has good pacing. There's some humor in the book. His level of detail, how he describes the world, is evocative. This is some compelling storytelling. Okay, all right. So it's from a pure craft perspective, this is a well-written book. All right, so I'm going to give a little bit of a summary about what the book is about. So the book has 5 major characters. It has Matthew and Sally. So Matthew is the son of an AI developer, an artificial intelligence developer, and so Matthew is the son of this AI developer. Matthew has a mother and a father. They are married. His father is an abominable father. He's like completely, he's the absent-minded professor. He really cares about his research, and his research absolutely comes before his wife, and it comes before his son. So Matthew understands that his father's true love is the development of an artificial intelligence, right? And then that's the next major character, which is Bucky. So Bucky is the artificial intelligence that is successfully created in the book. And then there's Sally. Sally is a ultra-religious, Matthew and Sally are both teenagers, like, I would say like junior or senior high school, right, age. Sally works at Dairy Queen, but she lives essentially in a religious compound, okay? And they're like conservative Christians, and I would even say evangelical Christians. The only thing that's a little odd for that Douglas Lain applies to Sally, the evangelical Christian, is she says that she speaks in tongues, right? Which is not all evangelicals believe in modern day gifts. Gifts like in the idea that what's the best way to put this? That we can so the Bible talks about spiritual gifts, right? It talks about teaching and administration, right? And hospitality. Those are 3 biblical gifts, right? But also there's the gift of prophecy. There's the gift of tongues. The gift of tongues is that you speak. You speak and everybody can understand you no matter what their language is, right? So that's tongues, right? So that's in there as well. So, and Sally thinks that she speaks in tongues, right? They call it glossolalia. By the way, this is the second book I've read the term glossolalia in, which is it's also in Snow Crash. Glossolalia is also in Snow Crash. By the way, whenever you hear the term glossolalia, you're looking at a non-Christian talking about tongues. It's the only time it's ever used. No Christians ever use it, right? So, by the way, here's my take on tongues. So, I do not speak in tongues. I have attended church where they do speak in tongues. I've been a member of a church where they spoke in tongues. I believe that this gift may be given to some human beings today of tongues, but I have never witnessed it. That's the best way to describe it. I do think it was in the early church. as it was described in the Bible, I think it was absolutely prominent. Right now, we're in a period where when we're interacting with God and we need to know God's messages, we have the written Bible. So there really isn't any need for there to be tongues today. And that's one of the reasons. However, I do think it is possible that people can prophesy and speak in tongues today. All right. Now, this is all up in the book, right? Because Sally thinks she's speaking in tongues, but the reality is later in the book she learns that she's just putting herself into a light trance and she's faking tongues, right? Which this definitely happens in many Christian churches. I've seen it, right? Without a doubt. Well, I don't know that they were faking, but there was a lot of evidence toward that, right? So, and the reality is, within Christian churches, when you're like, well, why would you fake speaking in tongues? Well, there's a lot of glory attached to it, right? So that's a thing, right? So Matthew is in love with Sally, and he is just trying to make it through his life, make it through high school. Actually, he drops out of high school. He's just trying to live a life, fall in love, and kind of do what American kids do, right? In their high school years, right? Actually, we're going to talk about Matthew more specifically. But he is in love with Sally, right? Okay. So what ends up happening is Matthew. And then Matthew has a mother, and she cares for him. It appears in the beginning of the book that she cares for him, and she does physically care for him. She creates, takes care of him, right? Makes sure he has the clothes he needs. His clothes are clean. That he has food to eat. All these kind of things, and if it seems like that's a trivial thing, it's not, because Matthew's dad doesn't care for his wife or his child, and really doesn't do anything to facilitate being a good father or a good husband, right? All right. Now, the whole point of this book, in my opinion, what Douglas Lain is really getting at is he is asking the question that many science fiction writers. You know what? I think I didn't finish my summary. I'm sorry. So Matthew's father creates an AI, right? And it's Buckminster Fuller, and that's its full name, and he is named Bucky. And the way the AI works is it's a code. It gives itself a test. It determines if it's actually cognizant, if it's sentient, and then it's accepted into a hive mind of other Buckies. And these Buckies, they pay attention to everything, like they're, traditional AI that you've seen in every sci-fi movie. They're connected to all computers. They have all the data in the world. They know about human beings because they can read their Facebook posts, right? So Bucky is a traditional AI, right? So Matthew's father builds Bucky. Bucky then sees, and the reason why Matthew's father builds Bucky is because he sees that humanity is on a race toward nuclear extinction, right? By the way, I love this book. I disagree with virtually every single supposition that the author has in the book. So I don't think we're screaming toward a global nuclear meltdown, right? Like people hardly even care that countries we're not in a Cold War. That's the thing, and I think the idea so in the book, Douglas Lain is saying that Matthew's father, does this because mankind is screaming toward this nuclear ending, right? Hesitant to use the term Holocaust, but yeah, this is kind of nuclear cataclysm, right? That will end humanity, right? And so he creates this AI so that it can manage human beings because human beings are too stupid to manage themselves. Now, I think this is very apt for Douglas Lain to put this in there, because super high-end, super smart techies often think that humans at the macro level are stupid, which I don't think that's the case. I don't think human beings at the macro level are stupid, right? So all that's going on, and then and so basically, what Bucky does to take over humanity is he simply gives everybody VR goggles and these green lycra suits, and just custom builds a special video game for each person to play. And then people who like playing the same game, he groups them together, like in restaurants and in spaces, and then literally, essentially uses other people as his robots to facilitate this new world where everyone in America is just doing nothing but playing their favorite video games with other people who love those favorite video games in VR, and being fed like, Soylent and essentially it's pretty much like UBI, right? Where nobody has to work, everybody just plays video games, and then Bucky uses the video games to have people do what he wants them to do. And since they're wearing the VR, these tasks that look to them like they're doing a fun game task are actually Bucky using them to do the task that they need, right? Now, the reason the book is called Bash Bash Revolution is there's this major theme where Bash Bash Revolution in the book is a video game where you fight, where it's a fighting video game with like Princess Teacup and Robin Hood and Eagle Man, and I think it's a a thinly veiled cover for Smash Brothers, right? Smash Bros, which is fine, and it works really well. And actually, you could tell that the author is like really loves this game. It's really precious to him, right? I'm not a big Smash Bros. I'm not even a big video game guy, but this is really brilliant. And Matthew's father uses Bash Bash Revolution as a test. He's terrible at video games, and he has Bucky teach him by listening to earphones how to play Bash Bash Revolution, and it even gets to the point where Bucky can control him at the nerve level, and essentially he uses this, like, if I can learn to play Bash Bash Revolution, then I can get Bucky to the level where he could take over all of humanity and protect us from destroying ourselves. Now, there's a lot of interesting things in that story, right? Oh, and then, of course, also, you have Matthew and Sally. And Matthew's just living through the life of having to deal with this incredibly absent, incredibly cruel, incredibly bad father that he has who creates this AI, right? And dealing with all his crazy crap, right? And then also, Sally is simply Matthew's girlfriend, okay? Now, Sally doesn't really like Matthew, and Matthew likes Sally for bad reasons, right? Like, he likes her because she's pretty, and he likes her because he wants to have a girlfriend, right? And then, so the two of them have this really fraught relationship, and Sally ends up using Matthew to talk to Bucky, and then the AI, and then uses Bucky to replace God, and comes to the understanding that God is not real. That's Douglas Lain projecting that onto that character, saying, she realized that God wasn't real, and that Bucky, this AI, was actually God. All right, so that's the summary, right? Here's the issue. So let's get into it. Here's my take, right? So this entire book is asking the question, is God real? And then Douglas Lain is giving his answer to that. And his answer to that is, no, God is not real. Now, I 100% disagree with this. I'm an evangelical Christian. I believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross, offered salvation on the cross to everybody who wishes to be saved. And the reason they need to be saved is every person on earth has sinned against God. And then when they die, they'll be separated from God and put into hell. But if you say, hey, I realize I've sinned against God, I would like to accept salvation through Jesus Christ's atoning act of death on the cross. He's going to pay for my sins. I'm not going to pay for my sins. God, please accept me into heaven based on the works of your Son, Jesus Christ. I would like to be saved. Please save me through Jesus Christ's blood, right? Then you're saved, right? And then you're going to go to heaven when you die. That's what I believe, right? So I believe God is 100% real, and that we can have a relationship with Jesus Christ, God, and the Holy Spirit, right? And Douglas Lain believes that all that is nonsense and there is no God, okay? Now, here's the issue, right? With if you believe what I say, right, then you will logically follow this path where you will love the Lord for giving you eternal life, right? And you will begin to drink less, because it says to drink less in the Bible, right? And you will treat people with kindness, right? And there you go. That's evangelical Christianity in a nutshell, right? Here's Douglas Lain's worldview presented in this book. You come to understand that there is no God, and that basically, and once you realize that, right, you're smarter and wiser than most other people, but you also realize that there's nothing waiting for you on the other side, and then you spend your life intoxicating yourself with alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana, right? That's exactly what Douglas Lain presents in every single major character. He presents that in Matthew, and he presents that in Matthew's father, right? And I think he also, he even presents that with Matthew's mother, right? There are 0 heroes in this book. There's no one to root for, okay? Matthew is a complete stoner. His dad is a horrible father. When push comes to shove and Bucky makes these super cool video games, Matthew's mother abandons him to play Call of Duty. Sally has no interest in Matthew at any point. Matthew's love for Sally is completely tainted and wrong, right? So that's the point, is the worldview that is presented in Bash Bash Revolution is absolutely horrendous, right? And, and in my opinion, in the book, it says, the book is really, it's presenting its worldview, and it's saying, hey, check it. There's no God, right? But that is a horrible, and all people are devoid of any kind, are devoid of being good people. There's no God, and there are no good people, right? And so get ready to drink and smoke and use marijuana for the rest of your life. That's Douglas Lain's worldview, right? You're like, what? Boy, that is dark, right? And if you read the book, that's my opinion. That's exactly what he's presenting. And honestly, he's not alone in presenting this. I think this is incredibly, it is incredibly common in many, many pieces of art. Is like this, hey, I read all the sacred books, and I've got to figure it out. God isn't real, but now I got to live with that, so I drink a lot, right? What a horribly depressing worldview. So Douglas Lain is a good author. He wrote a good story. His worldview is abominable. It is pure, terrible nonsense, right? It's just why you would, and that's another issue, right? Evangelical Christians, we struggle with giving the good news, giving the gospel to people that they are sinners, that Jesus Christ died to reconcile them to God, and that if they accept the offer of salvation that Jesus Christ has given by dying on the cross, that God will judge Christ in their place, and they will live with God forever, right? We have a hard time giving this message out, but we are also saying, hey, if you believe this, right, you can grow and have a personal relationship with a God that is actually good, right? And then you can try and can use the Bible to make yourself better for your entire life. And then when you die, there's a place at the end of this, right, where you will be with God and with everybody who is also an evangelical Christian forever, right? So we struggle to get this message out, right? Atheists, agnostics, and secularists, and I think from reading this book that Douglas Lain is one of those. He's an atheist, an agnostic, or a secularist. That their message is abominable, right? It is just abominable, right? And it kind of has to be, because if there is no God, there just logically is no source of good, right? And then as soon as you embrace this horrible, horrendous message, right, you are done, right? It's terrible, right? And I'm fascinated by this. I pay very close attention to this. One of the things I've seen that really, really is incredibly interesting to me is I'm a big fan of Penny Arcade, and Mike Krahulik and Jerry Hulkins are both just personal heroes to me. They're really cool guys, and they've done a lot with their Penny Arcade. They've done a great job with their Penny Arcade venture, right? And they have these cool conventions, and they celebrate video games and regular traditional games. But Mike Krahulik he's an agnostic, right? And people have talked about him there, and people have talked to him and said, hey, you're an agnostic, but you're also a millionaire, and you're an incredibly successful business person. Could you please give your message to other people? Could you champion this? And because you're a great champion for our movement. And Microholic is like, nope, I am absolutely not going to be your champion. And the reason why is I don't believe there's a God. But I'll tell you right now, that's such a depressing and dark belief with very little assurance or you know, it doesn't fill me with joy, and I'm not going to share it with anybody. And that's why I'm not going to carry the banner for agnosticism, atheism, or secularism. And I'm like, wow, you know, like, you know, and I will say too, like, pieces like that. Microholic isn't the only person I've seen come to that opinion. One thing I will say is it deeply makes me sad, right? Like that people are willing to live under that banner, right? Now, I'm going to end this video the only way me as an evangelical Christian can, right? So I live under the banner of Christ, right? And I will really, really just encourage everyone out there, read the book of Luke, right? And just say a simple prayer and say, dear Lord, help me understand this book. Help me to understand Christianity, right? And because I don't want to live in a godless world, and I don't want to live in a world that people a lot smarter than me, like Douglas Lain, have believed that you are not there, and then that has led them to say, you know what, I'll just spend the rest of my life. You know, like, I don't think Douglas Lain is spending the rest of his life drinking, but you know, I'm a teetotaler, right? And I could be a teetotaler because I have nothing to worry about, right? I'm literally living the life that it promises in the Word, and I can tell you it helps me to be a better Christian, a better husband, and a better father every day. So, you know, read Luke, pray that you can understand Christianity, find a Christian near you and ask them to help you walk through these 3 steps. Really realizing you're a sinner, asking God for salvation, you know, realizing you're a sinner, realizing that Jesus Christ paid for your sins on the cross with his death, and then saying the prayer to accept salvation from Jesus Christ. Also, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm very easy to find online. You can get at me through Twitter. You can get at me through my email. You can get at me right here on YouTube. I'd love to answer any questions you have on Christianity. And so I really enjoyed the book Bash Revolution, and it made me incredibly thankful that I'm an evangelical Christian, because the worldview that God does not exist is actually absolutely abominable and holds no joy and no comfort. And I hope Douglas Lain is okay, right? Because there's not a single character in his book that's okay. They're all messed up, all horribly broken, and all terrible to other people. I don't think that's the case with Douglas Lain. I'll bet he's doing a better job than most of the characters in his books, but it does make me worry. Like when I read the book, I'm like, oh boy. You know, so Douglas, I hope everything's doing okay there. Everyone, Bash Revolution is a really good book. Really consider being a Christian. Take care. I'd love to hear your comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful day.